During last week's event at the Circuit of the Americas, Pauli Pautanen put in a textbook performance by taking pole position and controlling the race from the front to take a deserved lights the flag victory, his second of the season. Championship leader Juanmi Costa settled for second, which combined with Timothy Reed's complicated race and 9th place finish allowed Juanmi to extend his lead. As we get started with the final quarter of the season, one overarching question is on everyone's minds. Can anyone stop Costa? Today might give us a hint at the answer as we get ready to watch round 10 of the Lotus 79 Sunday Grand Prix Series, and you'll get to see all of the action live right here on the Global SimRacing Channel. Hello everybody, I'm Thomas Mengozzi, and joining me in the booth today is Michael de Turk. Behind the scenes is our director Ryan Bauer, and he's using cameras provided by the one and only Dougie Beard. This week, the Sunday Grand Prix Series field make the trip from Texas to Cheshire for the last European round of the season at Oulton Park. Coming up to learn more about this old-school roller coaster of a track is our GSRC track guide.
Welcome to Oulton Park Circuit. This British track to the southeast of Liverpool is a staple in the UK club racing scene, but has also hosted series as high level as Formula One a few times. At least, with a small asterisk next to those events since they were non-championship rounds. The history and the lore of the venue is as unique as the layout itself. But that layout is more than just the international circuit this place is known for. An incredible 8 different versions can be run, but they all range between 1.5 to 2.5 miles in length. It's not exactly a long lap around here. What it lacks in that realm, it more than makes up for in bumps and hills. On top of that, Oulton Park offers some very fast corners, so you certainly won't get bored. Turns like Island Bend, Knickerbrook, and Druids can be utterly fearsome depending on which chicanes are at it. But even the slower corners often involve blind crests or kinked entries, making passing a very difficult prospect. In modern day, the place is mainly visited by touring cars, GT cars, motorcycles, and Formula 3. But here on iRacing, it's quite popular with the vintage community. Needless to say, this is a track that carries on the British tradition of fast, old-school style circuits that challenge and thrill drivers. It'll no doubt be a blast for both our competitors and fans today.
Well, Michael, Oulton Park, as I said, is an old-school roller coaster ride of a track. It's fast, it's flowy, right into the middle of the English countryside, but it's also very old-school in the way that there isn't really any margin for error, as there is a distinct lack of runoff around here.
Yeah, Thomas, it's going to be a challenge for our drivers today. Granted, Lotus 79 is always a challenge. A difficult car to drive well, a difficult car to drive really fast. Passing opportunities today are going to be few and far between. You're going to see a lot of moves on lap 1, but after that, chances, exist down at Knickerbrook, at Lodge Corner, and at Shell Oils if you're really, really, really daring. So this 12-turn, 2.6-mile road course is going to put up quite a challenge for our drivers today.
That is indeed true, and I've got to say, special mention in terms of scariest points, Knickersbrook and also Druid's Corner with that second apex that seems to go on forever and never seems to want to let up as we're about to get started with the little look at the F1 driver standings. And as we said, Juanmi Costa currently leading the standings with 581 points, 72 ahead of Timothy Reed, who had a bit of a difficult race last week at Coda, finishing in P9. Gernot Fleischer completes the provisional podium, 108 points down on the leader. But then we can see the battle for third, fourth is still not quite settled because Gernot might still be sitting in third pretty, but we also have Juho Raina and Dylan Freckleton in close proximity within a race wins worth of points. Also a very, very close battle is that for 6th place, currently led by Jack David Spickett, but then behind him, a couple of points adrift, we find Nathan Finnegan, Kimmo Viljakainen, and Jason Clapper. Pepe Fuentes completing the top 10. Now, what's the situation over on the F2 side of things, Michael?
Our F2 championship for drivers that started the season with less than 3,000 iRating. We have Barry West in the lead with 293 points, followed pretty closely by Keith Herner, who's 39 points back. In third is Miguel Moreland, 75 points behind them. Behind them, we have Samuel Reinforth in a really close fight with Pablo Suarez, Robert Simpkins, and Kurt Clapper, who's tied with Shady Ahmad, 97 points back. Behind them is Andrew Thomas and Bjorn Ackerman in 10th place.
With that out of the way, I think we can get you the lowdown on the race details for today's event. Round 10 out of 12 in this season of the Sunday Grand Prix Series. After that, we are basically starting the official final quarter of the season, 30 laps around this 4.3 kilometer these 4. I already forgot the race distance. That's great. Yeah, 4.3 kilometer circuit, making for around 129 kilometers or roughly 80 miles of total race distance. Open setup, so you can dial in the car however much you want to actually extract the most of this Lotus 79 around here. But you also got to be very careful because there are no spare cars available. Any sort of moment that transforms into a big accident will mean instant retirement a lot sooner than you might think. And this being an unofficial series, of course, drive-through penalties will be issued for drivers at 17 incident points, with disqualifications issued at 25 incident points. With all of this preamble out of the way, let's get straight into qualifying. And it seems as though we're already on board with Ronnie Costa. No, actually, I completely messed that up. It is Gernot Fritzsche. We're almost half of the way through qualifying. 4 minutes and 45 seconds left to go, and the first few times posted on the board, and already we're getting a lot quicker than when we were there last year, where the pole lap was courtesy of Jukka Tolonen with a 112.571. We're already getting into the 111s here.
Yeah, Thomas, pretty cool conditions, 19 degrees Celsius, track temps 33, so I expect to see some pretty fast times here. So we're on board with Gernot here as he goes through turn 1. It's so easy to get an off track there. You just run it out just a little bit wide over the curb, and suddenly you've got an off track and your lap time's deleted. But Gernot keeps it nicely between the lines as we're going to run down here through Island Bend.
Running down here through Island Bed indeed, as we're continuing to watch out with Gernot Fritzsche now through Shell Oil's corner. Nice and easy, tucking in at the apex of that hairpin with a little bit of camber, or banking I should say, rather than camber, because you do get to use a bit of the outside of the corner if you're a little bit wider to carry a bit more exit speed. And then straight through Hilltop on the run down to Nickersbrook. A tiny bit of braking, or maybe a bit of a blend through the throttle and braking there as you the car settled into the corner. Then on the run to Clay Hill as we make our way down to Druids Corner. 2 apexes to the right here. Here's the first one. You have to be very, very careful on that second one because the corner continues ever so slightly to ramp up to the right, and you can actually be very, very easily thrown off and end up on the side of the track where you can get one off track, but also have the car very, very much unsettled here.
Yeah, as we see Gernot put in a 112.367, which is good enough for 5th on the grid. We also saw Jukka Tolonen shoot up to 3rd. And it looks like Alex Millward has come back this week and is challenging possibly for pole position here, as he's only a 10th off Juan Costa.
On board now with Jukka Tolonen through the same Shell Oil corners, and then on the rundown. So this is the first chicane that we're already going straight past through here. This is, of course, the no chicane variant. So it's a straight, uninterrupted run all the way up to Nickersbrook. Let's see how he does through here. Pretty much just not even nibbling the curb, going very, very close to it, but not nibbling it at all. This is perfect placement of the car right now from the fin. Of course, pole position holder last time around we went here last year. Let's see what he's capable of actually pulling in. His fastest lap so far, a 112.117 through the Warwick Bridge, and on the run down to Lodge Corner. Get the car thrown to the apex a little bit late, and then a little bit of a compression as we go through the Deer Leap as we're moving on to the start-finish line. What will be the time for Jukka Tolonen? 112.076. Not quite enough to even dislodge Millward from that second place at the moment. Gernot Fritzsche will be running across the start-finish line. What will the time be? Another 112, this time 1.161. Juan Costa currently still sitting as the only driver to dip below the 112s.
Yeah, I think Jukka might be a little bit disappointed with that lap time. He had a little bit of a bobble going through Druids. The car got a little bit sideways, and then he tried to get on the power, for that great exit coming out of Lodge, and the car slid there as well. I think pole might have been possible there, but, 3rd place is not a bad place to start. You've got the inside going into turn 1, and we'll see what he can do today.
We'll indeed see what he can do. In the meantime, Jack David Spickett on the run down to the final corner through Lodge Corner. Coming up through the Deer Leap, 113.223. That might be more of a banker time than anything else there for Jack David Spickett, as we already enter into our final minute of qualifying. This is going to be pretty much the last attempt for everybody that's currently sitting on track at the moment. Continuing to go with Jack David Spickett. A little bit of a correction moment there through Cascades.
Yeah, Jack's going to be our last car on track here as he comes down through Island Bend. Full throttle through Island Bend in these cars. They've got so much downforce that you just kind of come down through there, and just a little bit of a lockup on his way through Shell Oil. It's really a tough corner there because you really want to just kind of brush the brakes in the 79s, and it feels like you should brake harder. But you brush the brakes and kind of get it into the banking on the corner there, and the downforce on the car really will pull the car through as Jack goes through Knickerbook and heads up the hill.
Heading up the hill as we're moving on to Druitt's Corner, and it's all very easy to think that you want to actually push the brake a little bit harder, but it's also very easy to lock up, I found, here in these Lotus 79s. So yeah, brushing the brake is very much the most important thing to get right, getting the perfect amount of pressure on that left pedal to get the car somewhat stopped or somewhat able to turn in correctly as we get onto the lap from Jack David Pickett. It's a 1:12.797, thus concluding our qualifying run, and the grid will look a little something like this, with Juan Costa again being the only driver to be dipping below the 112s with a 111.904 in pole position. Then Alex Millward, 112.025 completes the front row. Jukka Tolonen and Gernot Fritsche in row 2, Juho Raina and Nathan Finnegan in row 3, then 7th and 8th in row 4, Dylan Freckleton and Paul J. Williams in that order, with row 5 comprised of Pepe Fuentes and Jack David Pickett in 10th position.
In 11th, we have Sebastian Tixier, side by side with Daniel Banker, who put down a 113.0. In 13th, we have Seamus Power. In 14th, Miguel Moreland. On row 8, we have Stefan Le Boris next to Samuel Ryman. And row 9, we have Maximiliano Lasieras next to Jason Clapper.
And with all this out of the way, people are starting to grid up and make the formation for this race. As you can see, pretty cool conditions, clear skies, 90 degrees air temperature, 33 degrees on track, a southwesterly wind, which means a tiny bit of tailwind, I would wager, coming through Hilltop and on the run towards Knickerbrook. 58% humidity, so not too dry, not too humid as well. So this is pretty much, I'd say, not quite optimal conditions, but it's getting up there.
No, it's a pretty nice day, clear skies. It doesn't look like the wind is particularly swirling, which we see sometimes here, and that definitely can affect this car. So, reasonable conditions. We'll see if it's going to get a little bit hotter throughout the session, but I think we're going to have a nice challenge for our drivers here today on the superior Oulton Park layout.
Well, there is one statement done out there as the grading process is still taking place. It looks as though we are getting close to getting this race underway. It seems, I wonder if we're still waiting for someone. No, everybody's on the grid. The red rise, the red light is on, and the field is let loose, and we're racing in Oulton Park. Great start from Juan Costa, but look behind him. It's going to be Gernot Fritsche making a move around. It's actually Jukka Tolonen making a move around, and Alex Millward to depose him from second position as they make the run down the Cascades. Perfect start from Juan Costa as we are getting settled in onto turn number 1. It seems as though not any damage to be done and not any kind of hairy moments so far in the first few turns.
Yeah, Jukka had a great launch off the grid there. Just followed Wanmi right off the grid and got around Alex into turn 1. I think in the background there we saw Sebastian Tixier going just slightly off track as he came down into Cascades, but got it woed up, got back on track, and is following Jack David Pickett down the back straight.
Along with Jack David Pickett we go as he chases down Pepe Fuentes, and just up ahead of him will be Paul Williams as we're making our way through Knickerbrook for the first time here in this race. Everybody seems to make it nice and easy, being a little bit tentative and not pushing too hard too early here in this 30-lap race, which is a little bit of a long affair in terms of lap count, but with lap times in the 1:13s or 14s on the regular, this is going by very, very quickly as we're already through the launch corner and through the deer leap for our leader Juan Costa, who's going to be completing lap number 1 as the leader of this race. Half a second clear of Jukka Tolonen, who made a great start and got ahead of Millward right off the bat into Old Hall for P2.
Yeah, Jukka's going to want to stay tucked up right behind Wanmi. It's, as we've talked about, it's so hard to get a pass done here. So, first couple laps, it's your standard, bring the tires up to temperature in this car, kind of get a balance underneath you. It's difficult with those tiny front tires, as we see the onboard with Jack here. Just try to stay tucked up behind somebody and not get into too much aero wash, and give yourself the best chance you can on the run through Hilltop, as Jack gets a great exit there. And, take your chances into Knickerbrook. You really got to go for the inside. It's tough to hang a pass on the outside there. You can defend pretty infinitely on the inside. So he's just a little too far back, but Gets a nice run through the corners, a little wide off the apex curb, but you know, you gotta stay right up behind that car and deal with the aero wash through these corners to try to have a chance.
Yeah, it feels like that little run and that little lift that Jack David Pickett had to go through to make it through Knickerbrook unscathed. Is that perfect demonstration of the aero wash, or dirty air rather, that he's currently getting as he sits behind Pepe Fuentes. As meanwhile up front, Jukka Tolonen is making some solid moves, trying to get closer and closer to Juan Costa. He's currently the fastest man on track with a 1:13.371 as we're following along with the Finn as he makes it through Cascades. There it is on board, chasing down the number 1 car of Juan Costa, your championship leader, as we're making our way through Island Bend and then heavy braking down towards Shell Oils at the moment. Let's see if there's going to be any kind of different setup for Jukka as the exit from this particular corner. A little bit of a wider, bit of a slip up there from the rear. The back end sort of stepping out of line at the exit of Shell Oils for Jukka Tolonen, which is going to cost him time as the exit of that corner really conditions the entire speed down Hilltop and through Knickerbrook as well, as we're making our way through Knickerbrook on lap 3.
Yeah, it looks like Jukka and Wanmi have very similar downforce levels. Most of the field does. We're kind of in the 270 kilometer an hour range. So Jukka taking a little bit of a wider line there through Shell doesn't surprise me. He gets a little bit more air on the front of his wing and gives him a chance to get a good exit as he takes that late exit out of Shell. But now we're on board with Paul Williams, who's making a return back to the series. He raced with us again last week. He used to be a regular of ours. So it's nice to see Paul back in car and having a nice battle here with Nathan Finnegan as Juan Costa sets the fastest lap of the race with a 13.111.
13.111, soon dipping into the 112s here on the regular, on race pace, as we're currently still following along with Paul Williams, currently sitting in 8th place at the moment, some 4/10 down from Nathan Finnegan, just up ahead of him. And we always have some exquisite liveries, I gotta say, in the Lotus 79s, and that is one key, that is one such contender for a gorgeous livery right there. That's kart inspired. I don't know if we can even say the word. We can say the word, in my opinion. That's Newman Haas Racing livery on Lotus 79, which does suit it quite well with the two-tone theme it's going for. But liveries aside, it's still as I said, it's good to be, as you said, it's good to be back to see Paul Williams back at the wheels. We're moving back a little bit further down the field with Jack David Pickett once again, getting plenty of airtime early on in this race. Still chasing down Pepe Fuentes, is still having trouble trying to close the gap, and maybe that aero wash is getting a little in too much trouble too far down the line to really do anything about it at this point.
Yeah, Thomas, we can say kart. We can't say the other half of the open wheel war from America in the 90s.
Yeah, I guess there were some unspoken rules that I managed to not breach somehow. In the meantime, Juan Costa posting the fastest lap of the race with a 1:13.0, as we said, getting closer to the 112 now.
Yeah, we're seeing a number of drivers here kind of having broken off into pairs. We've got Wanmi and Jukka, and then behind them, about a second and a half back, we've got Alex and Juho, and then we've got Dylan and Gernot, and then behind them we've got Nathan and Paul. So it kind of seems like everybody's broken off into pairs here. They're all fighting each other. We see Seamus Power going for the pass here up Hilltop.
On the inside of Daniel Banker, it seems like in the number 14, it's still side by side as they make it way to Knickerbrook, and it seems as though Power makes it through. Daniel Banker has to yield just before Knickerbrook too. Why through that corner was never going to make it through, and that is one position up ahead for Seamus.
Yeah, Power powered his way through there. But that's what you have to do if you're going to make the pass into Knickerbrook. You have to take the inside. It's far too easy if you are the person on the inside there while defending to kind of brake late and take that apex and just wash out a little bit wide, and not necessarily to Max Verstappen them off the road, but you know, when you see that gap disappearing and you're the driver on the outside, it's very, very, very easy to just, you know, get run out of road, and you have to see that wedge is disappearing and back out of it, as we're seeing Jukka get really close to Wanmi here to try to take the lead.
Yeah, just 0.3 of a second between these two. It was very, very close going into Shell Oil corners, with Jukka trying to go for a bit of a later apex through Shell Oils, but ultimately having to still sit at the back in second position, still having a few sniffs at the gearbox from Wanmi from time to time. So far, not really any moves to be made for the Finn in the battle for the lead as we're on to lap 6 of this race. And then you could see Alex Millward's car passing by in the background at number 6, sitting in 3rd place and having a little bit of room to breathe actually against Juho. A 7/10 difference between Alex and Juho right now as we're moving on board with Jukka Tolonen across the line to start lap number 7. Costa still sitting 4/10 ahead, and at this point just trying to control the race.
Yeah, it's lap 7. You know, they've still got more than 2/3 of the race remaining. So, you know, from Wanmi's perspective, it's put your head down, just do your laps. And from Jukka's perspective, it's pressure, 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 pressure. Just keep that pressure applied and force the leader into a mistake so that, you know, you get that opportunity for a clean pass.
As we're making our way through Shell Oils again, yeah, Juha does not really have any other option than just to push like hell and continue trying to make a little bit of an impression on Costa. But so far that impression is not really being made. As you can see, the lap comparisons in terms of lap times between both the leader and our chaser right now, Tolonen. And it goes from 1/10 away of Tolonen, 1/10 away of Costa, and then the gap seems to sort of stabilize over time, with Tolonen having taken a significant chunk, well, having taken a 10th on lap number 5, and Costa not having been able to rewiden the gap back to where it used to be, but still holding onto that 4/10 advantage for that particular moment as we go from the back end of Juanmi Costa's perspective with the rear wing right in prime view, and just behind him in prime view as well, the white and blue car of Jukka Tolonen, who got a much better exit from Old Hall there. As he makes his way through Cascade, he's going to have to try and set himself up maybe for Shell Oils, maybe a maneuver down there. This could be all dependent on the gaps between these two once we go to that corner. As we're making our way through Island Bend, it's still advantage to Costa, but can Tolonen pull something special? He's going to have to think about it at another time.
Yeah, we saw Jukka get that really nice apex through turn 1. Wanmi was a little bit wide there. And, you know, for me, it wouldn't be a set him up into Shell Oil. It would be get as close as possible and get the move done, or at least try to get the move done down into Knickerbrook. Unfortunately, you know, Jukka has the disadvantage of being in the dirty air here. And with the braking zone so short here, it's difficult to get right on top of somebody. But as we see him really get close here coming through Druids, not close enough for a move down into Lodge, at least not on lap 8. But we see him move over and get in Wanmi's mirrors a little bit, try to distract him and make him feel that pressure.
Yeah, showing himself a little bit, saying, hey, I'm here, I'm ready to strike at any opportunity, as, Jukka, maybe a bit more of a setup to Knickerbrook. Knickerbrook is always a little bit of a scary corner, when even, be it from a driver's or from a spectator's perspective, because we saw Juanmi getting a little bit, not quite loose, but having a tiny bit of a moment midway through the corner, managing to come away from it unscathed and not going too far off of the track, as Tolonen is still not looking really any close at the moment to pose any visual threat to Juanmi Costa's lead at the moment, going through Shell Oil once again, trying to get a better exit from the corner compared to Costa, but I'd say they're roughly equal at the moment, so the gaps are still going to be retaining themselves within the 2 to 3/10 of a second range, as we can see Tolonen getting a little bit closer in the totem, as we're going to be moving back with Gernot Fritsche currently sitting in P4, having lost 2 places since the start of this race, currently chasing down Dylan Freckleton on the run down to Knickerbrook. And the pilot from Germany, Austria, and Switzerland, there you go, I got that right, still looking to get onto the top 5 and get back into the good books.
Yeah, Gernot had a nice run there through Knickerbrook, sitting behind Dylan Freckleton, who is another series regular here. You know, I'm sure these two are going to put up a nice show for us. Gernot always has, at least from my experience racing against him, as he gets over and gets into Dylan's mirrors a little bit there, let him know he's there. Gernot always comes on strong later in the race. You know, he manages his pace early, takes care of his tires. He's a very sensible driver. And then the last 5-10 laps, he just piles the pressure on and makes you feel it and forces you into a mistake and says, thank you very much, and takes that position back.
A third of the way through this race, almost lap 10 out of 30 here, as we're going to get a replay from something we might have missed. So let's see. This is Sébastien Tixier. We were talking about him at the start of the race, going a little bit wide and just having a little bit too much of a send through Old Hall. That's the worst way to get into the tire barrier. That I feel like, I don't know about you, but I feel like this could have been somewhat of a save. Unfortunately for Tixier, did not really have maybe did not have the wits quick enough to stamp it on the brake pedal as soon as he could, as he actually felt the back end sort of stepping out through Oulton, and that's going to be quite the amount of damage there for the Sebastian Timsey, the number 4 car.
Yeah, the Lotus 49 driver there. It's difficult to get turn 1 correct in this car. You really want to be light on the brakes and you want to trail brake through it, but just a hair too much brake or a hair too much steering angle with the way these cars are set up for Oulton Park, it's really easy to get that front end turned in, and the rear end, as we saw, will just come around on you because you've given it just a little bit too much input one way or another, whether it's too much steering or too much brake, and suddenly it'll slide out and just kill you through turn 1. If you've driven a Lotus 79 at Oulton Park, you've crashed through turn 1 at some point. Unfortunately for Tixier, it happened in the race.
Yeah. Better to happen during testing than during racing. Unfortunately for him, it happened during the race. In the meantime, Gernot Frisch still hot on the heels of Dylan Freckleton, showing himself on the inside on the run down to Nickerbrook to try and impress Freckleton, force him to make a mistake on the run down to Nickerbrook. But so far, so good for the man in the number 5 car, still sitting in P5 at the moment, going through Druid's corner. A little bit of a wide entry there for Gernot as he continues to chase down Freckleton on the run down to Lodge corner. And yeah, that was a really solid opportunity there for Gernot. Maybe a little bit too far back to make a real move happen, but that is probably the closest that we've seen so far in between these two cars. In the meantime, up front, we saw the fastest lap go the way of Juan Costa with a .821. Yuka retaliates in the next lap with a .760. A little bit of a wide exit from Freckleton there through Hall. That's going to be putting him vulnerable to Fletcher through Cascades, who shows himself on the left-hand side. Doesn't have the best exit from Cascades as a result of that little show, and is going to have to rethink of it all again.
Yeah, you can tell Dylan's pushing on that previous lap going through Druids. He got just a little bit of a bobble mid-corner and it slid on him, and he drove it all the way out on the curb and just barely touched the grass, which is part of what brought Gernot into play there through Old Hall and then Cascades. As we see them go up the hill and headed down towards Knickerbock, Dylan's protecting the inside, and like I said, I think that's really the way you got to go here. As you see, it just forces Gernot all the way out of the curb with a nice 2-foot save there from Gernot. He was very, very wide. It's so hard to hold it around the exit there, or around the outside there on the exit. It's the easier way to defend that corner. You can do it lap after lap.
That is nicely held, though, I gotta say. That's the
yes, very nice save.
That's Gernot went through. He just dipped the left rear on the grass, and with just one wheel dipping on the grass here, it's so easy to get the car unsettled, especially those Lotus 79s, which get a little bit hairy when you don't have the downforce really to help you. Even on high downforce corners, it can be a little bit of a hot moment if you do not get the positioning right. And here, Gernot managing to keep it on the road nice and steady, but of course, that will cost him ultimately a lot of time in the remote battle versus Dylan Freckleton, and that's going to be sending him 1 second down compared to the man in top 5, as we're currently following along back again with Jukka Tolonen, who's continuing to pile on the pressure. He has not given any inch of room so far for Juan Costa, who continues to hold on to a 2/10 lead, but that lead has been slowly shrinking and shrinking and shrinking every single lap as we move on to the run through Clay Hill, then Druid's Corner.
Yeah, these two have been, 3/10 off each other basically the entire race. As we talked about, Yuka's just going to sit here and try to apply the pressure. It's still early. He's got half the race to go, a little over half the race to go. So he's in no position where he needs to force a pass. He just needs to keep applying the pressure as Wanmi responds and says, "Oh, you want to keep applying pressure? Great. Here's the fastest lap of the race with a 12.7.
Yeah, and I gotta say, Yuka also driving a 12.7, not far off from his personal best so far in this race, .766, keeping in mind that he drove a .760, which was the previous fastest lap of the race on lap number 13, as we're moving through Shell Oil once again from the perspective of the two leaders. These two are really on a different world in terms of pace. While the rest are running into the 13s, 13.0 for Joraina, for instance, I think those are the top two are consistently running in the 112s, like mid to high 112s lap after lap after lap for the last few laps, which is just shows how far ahead of the curve they are in terms of, well, knowledge of the track and also potentially car setup. Maybe they figured out something the others haven't.
Yeah, the Lotus 79 community is pretty tight-knit. Most of the setups get shared around. Sure, there are some tweaks, but for the most part, I would put it down to practice, practice, practice. This is a car that just rewards you for putting in the hours on it. It's got so many little interesting tendencies mid-corner where the less brake you can give it and the more accurate you can be with the steering and the quicker you can get back to the throttle, which sometimes seems just impossible by the way the rear end wants to step out from the enormous amount of power that DFV puts out. But the more hours you put in, the faster you're going to go on this car. Yes, some of it surely is set up. There are differences between them, and everybody has their own little tricks, as we see Nathan Finnegan off in the grass. I think that's through turn one. Somebody else almost missing.
Yep. That is indeed Old Hall, and I wonder who that was. Was that Jack David Spickett up ahead? I don't really know. That's the number 14 car, actually. That's Daniel Banker. Let's get a little bit of a replay of what happened there. So let's see Finnegan, who's down, actually chasing down Paul J. Williams, and just like Teek said earlier, just goes in a little bit too hot through Old Hall and clobbers in the worst way, front then back, and then behind him, that was another car that I think was Daniel Banker, who actually got a little bit too wide. Oh, actually, that's JD. Was it JDS? I think it is.
No, it's Power. It's Power who missed him.
That's Power. She missed Power, because I feel like I always confuse the liveries, because red, white, blue, they look almost pretty similar from JDS to She Missed Power. But yeah, Power unfortunately getting a little bit wide, managing to escape unscathed. Thankfully for him, the same cannot exactly be said for Nathan Finnegan, who's going to be severely handicapped in this race. Speaking of JDX, we're right back with him as he currently continues to chase down Pepe Fuentes. Those two, again, much like people have been, we said a little bit earlier, people have been splitting in pairs, and this pair has not left each other since the start of this race, pretty much.
Yeah, it's not Noah's Ark, it's Oulton Park, so we get them 2 by 2, we get them paired up. We're going to see Jack come down through Cascades here. He's got a nice run. He's tucked up behind Pepe Fuentes. As we talked about, I don't think the attempt down into Shell is necessarily the best advised. We're not going to see Jack do that. He's going to tuck up behind, gets a narrow exit, and tries to stay underneath that rear wing as they go up Hilltop here. There was somebody in the grass there trying to go too wide. It was Gernot coming back on Dylan Freckleton. Gernot's having an adventurous day, that's for sure.
Yeah, Gernot having quite the field trip so far at Oulton Park, as we're still on board with JDS, who's making solid inroads onto the advantage that Pepe Fuentes has for P8. Jukka Tolonen retaliating again in terms of the fastest lap, 0.470. We're in qualifying lap territory here in this particular instance for the top two again as Skill. We still see, well, Pepe Fuentes continuing to hold 8th place by the skin of his teeth versus Jack David Spickett, who continues to make, again, a few inroads here and there, managing to bridge the gap a teensy tiny bit as we're moving back with Jason Clapper. Started 18th, moved up 5 places since the start of this race. Jason Clapper currently chasing down Nathan Finnegan as well.
Yeah, Jason's our big mover so far, up 5 places. Typical performance from Jason Clapper. Likes to start at the back and work his way up through the field as he can. So
that is actually something that I've also seen. It was, I don't know if it was last season. Yeah, I think it was last season during the Manicol race, where he started way from the back of the field and decided to have a little bit more of a tussle up ahead. Oh, that is a very big crush through Knickerbrook. That is Gernot Fletcher out of the running with the contact, I'm assuming, with Dylan Freckleton from the black and purple car, and that is going to be one battered car that is completely toast. Yep, he's crabbing all the way up through Clay Hill. That is race over. Let's have a look at what happened there. Both of them having a little bit of a run. Actually, Gernot having a really solid run on Daniel Freckleton, trying to stick it on the outside. Maybe a little bit of, just a nibble of the curb on the inside there for Dylan Freckleton that sends him all the way into Gernot. Not really much that he could do there to avoid any of that contact.
Yeah, we see Gernot move to the outside here, and Dylan holds that inside, gets turned in, just barely gets that inside curb, and it just pops him to the left just a little bit, where he makes wheel-to-wheel contact with Gernot and sends him into that outside wall to his unfortunate retirement from this race.
That is a very painful way to end a race like that.
That's also why you take the inside into Knickerbrook while you're defending. You know,
it can be absolute. Yeah. That curve on Nickelbrook is absolutely murderous, and it's a little bit of a scary one whenever I did the reconnaissance runs in preparation for this race, just to get a little bit of a feel of the Lotus around this track. And if you get that little nibble of the curb, all of a sudden you get a jump, and you get sent all the way far out across the track and almost into the grass on the exit of Knickerbrook. So, yeah, very unfortunate end to Gano's race, who comes back at the start-finish line and comes back into the pits. Oh, Nathan going a little bit wide there through Old Hall as he tries to chase down, who was that? That is Jason Clapper, I think, up ahead, and he decides to park it, I think. Yeah, that might.
Yeah, that's still suspension damage from his off through turn one where he got the tire barrier. He tried to continue, decided that, you know, it wasn't worth his time based on the way the car was driving, and pulled off and decided to retire. To go back really quickly, I just want to be clear, the incident with Dylan and Gernot is definitely not a intentional, I'm going to bump you off the track.
Nope.
It's just the nature of defending there, and you can tell he tried to keep it as inside as possible. Gernot was turning in, they were, you know, side by side going wheel to wheel. Definitely just a racing incident in that instance. It's just kind of the nature of that corner, and why I preach take the inside there if you're gonna defend, because all it takes is a little bit of a mistake when you're on the inside of that corner and you're going to touch that apex curb. Speaking of a little bit of a mistake, we saw Wanmi almost touching the grass there on the exit of Druids. But just a little bit of a mistake while you're defending on the inside of Knickerbrook, and you'll touch that curb and it will wash out wide. And as the inside driver there, you're trying to keep it as narrow as possible and keep it as clean as possible. Nobody wants to take damage or DNF, but it will always push you out if you touch that curb. And as the driver on the outside, 99 times out of 100, you're going to be the loser in that instance.
Yeah, that is very much an honest-to-goodness racing incident. I totally agree with that, and it's a very unfortunate one at that. That's
yes, yeah.
Because those two were having a bit of an adventurous race. They could have salvaged some really, really good positions, but ultimately, yeah, the curb at Knickerbrook kind of decided otherwise. So that is race over for both of these guys, as we're moving back with Daniel Banker, who's also had a little bit of a adventurous start of the race for now. Started 12th, moving up to P10, 2 positions up compared to the start of the race, and currently trying to chase down Seamus Power for the benefit of 9th.
Actually, Thomas, Dylan survived that. Got away with, I think, no damage, actually. I think it's just Gernot that ended up with damage and then the ultimate retirement from that. So, you know, Dylan getting away pretty lucky there to not take any damage.
Oh, I confused with Nathan Finnegan. Sorry about that.
Yes, they're very similar looking cars, and they are very similar speed drivers. So
I got duped. I got duped really hard. Sorry about
We saw Dylan get a little bit of apex curve there at the apex of Druids, which just washed him out just a little bit wide.
All right, moving on to Pepe Fuentes' perspective as he chases down JDS, who it seems like the roles have been swapped around. I don't exactly know. I might have completely missed it, or we might have missed it, but yeah, JDS was chasing down Pepe Fuentes. Now the roles have been reversed with 10 to go. It is going to be JDS currently sitting in P7 with Fuentes currently chasing down the Englishman.
Yeah, swapped roles. They're headed down through Island. Oh, as we see Yuka almost getting a side-by-side for the lead here through Knickerbrook. That was really close. That looked like a really solid run out there from Tolonen, which we kind of lost the lead up to. Oh, a little bit of correction there. Oh, and there's going to be a nibble on the backside from Juan Costa, who keeps it on the way, keeps it on the black stuff, continues to lead, but that could have been catastrophic from the exit of Druids. He was basically correcting after correction after correction after correction all the way through Druids. That could have been going south really, really quickly. Thank God for Juan Costa. He manages to keep it on this particular racetrack. Let's look at it all the way through Shell Oil. So this is pretty much the setup at this point. As we're moving through, Yuka looking very, very close, keeping it tucked into the back end of Juan Costa's car, trying to take advantage of the slipstream on the run through Hilltop. Then trying to make himself seen in the mirrors of Juanmi as we make our way through Knickerbrook. Chooses the inside to make himself seen, not close enough to make any moves, so he will be ducking out and getting back into the back end of Juan Costa for the slipstream. Now through Clay Hill, and now on the run to Druids. Watch the car ahead of Juan Costa. Doesn't get the best of entries in first correction, second correction moment, and then a little bit of a nibble from the front ring on the back end of the car of Juan Costa, who still manages to keep it going. Very, very fortunate outcome there, which could have been oh so different. Yeah, Yuko was really really nice through the corner there, really nice through Druids, was on throttle on exit, and Ronnie had that kind of double bobble, and unfortunately just drove straight into the back of him trying to get the run down into Lodge. Yuka now has some fairly substantial front wing damage, so it's going to be quite the challenge for him to get the air over the front of that car, get it turned in, and stay with Wanmi. He's dropping back 0.8, 0.9. This is going to be a difficult final 8 laps for him.
Yeah, I feel like this is pretty much the I say turning point of the race, but very determining factor into this race's outcome, because these two have not been letting go of each other for the past 20 laps, ever since Yuka got ahead of Alex Millward for second position into Old Hall on the opening lap. As we're going back with Daniel Banker, currently sitting in the top 10, chasing down Shima's Power still, and continuing to make some slow but steady progress in terms of the gaps being reined in. Currently sitting 4/10 down from Shima's Power, just up ahead in the number 10 car, going through Cascades. And yeah, Tolonen and Costa, I feel like this is going to be what gives the race to Juanmi Costa, who doesn't seem to have sustained any damage on the rear from that little contact, which didn't seem, it seems kind of innocuous at first glance, but yeah, the front wing from Tolonen would have a lot of the word about that. So yeah, I feel like that gap is still going to be staying around the second for the entirety of these 8 laps, although I might be going a little bit out of the limb here with that prediction. That's the way I see it.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see. It's really tough once you've made that contact and you've got that little bit of damage, especially if you've got your relative display up and you are going down the straightaways watching the gap, your relative turn red as you move down the straightaways and go, oh look, I'm losing time. I definitely got damage from that. Part of that's the damage, part of that's the mental side where you say, oh man, if only I hadn't touched the rear. But yeah, Wanmi's car is 100% clean, that's for sure. Yuka's front wing has a substantial bend, so that's going to be hurting him both in the straight line as the car is going to be more draggy, and in the corners as the downforce is going to kind of feel unbalanced and the front end's not going to want to turn in. As we're looking at a battle between Power and I believe that's Banker behind him.
Yep, we're still continuing to follow with that battle. We've been following for the entire lap, actually, and the gap's still hovering around that 4/10 of a second margin, 4/10 ballpark, as we're making our way to Shell Oils, going a little bit wide there, a bit deep into the corner for Daniel Banker, trying to get a bit of a better speed through the exit. Doesn't really manage to make it stick that much, and that will be in the benefit of Shima's Power, who will be widening the gap to half a second on the run down to Knickerbrook, as we're following along still with the number 14 car. Doesn't really get any close to the curb, keeps on trying to manage roll on and off the throttle through Knickerberg, trying to keep the car somewhat stable before making the run through Clay Hill and into Druids. Well, very, very slow corner there from Shima's Power, though. That's going to be benefiting Banker, who got a little bit of a better line through that double right-hander and on the run down to Lodge.
Yeah, these last few laps, the tires are hot. They've got hot surfaces. They've got hot carcass. The fuel has burned off on these cars, so the handling has changed a little bit. The drivers are going to be managing that. As we see a big slide through one, the drivers are going to be managing that balance shift in the chassis, as well as trying to get on the power earlier. So things like Druids are going to be even less brake, and you're going to be getting back to the power early. Knickerbrook, these last final few laps, you're really not going to be braking for it. You're just going to be down to the point where you lift a little bit and kind of like throw the car in on the nose through the corner and try to power through it. And you're going to be running all the way ragged to the curbs on corner exits, just trying to get the best exit you can, especially when you're in the case like Power is here, where you're under attack and you're trying to maintain that gap.
Yeah, this is going to be very much, managing the race, but also with the hot carcass and low fuel loads, the cars are going to be getting unsettled a little bit quicker. Maybe downforce will try and help for those of the drivers that still have a somewhat intact car. But this is going to be a little bit of a tricky dicey game that they're going to be playing, as we're going on to 5 to go from the leader's perspective. Ronnie Costa, who posted another new fastest lap of the race, 1:12.285. Definitely the lightening of the fuel load, making good work there to actually shave those times down, and seeing actually Shima's Power getting really, really close to being overtaken there by Daniel Banker. The battle still raging on there between these two for the benefit of P9. Still a half a second of a gap going through Cascades. Daniel not really managing to make any solid inroads to warrant a move in the next maybe 2 or 3 laps. Maybe something from Seamus might be shifting the balance of power more towards Daniel, but so far Seamus managing to soak up the pressure pretty well and keep the lines and the exits neat and tidy through pretty much every single corner now.
Yeah, we see them making the run up through Hilltop. Power's moving over just a little bit. Just try to see where that car that's attacking you is. Also try to take a little bit of a draft off of them. You know, if they can't follow perfectly in your wake, they don't get quite the advantage of the run down the straightaways. As we see the two of them come through Druids.
Everybody keep both of them having a really neat and tidy line and having a somewhat better line through that corner for Seamus compared to what it was 1 or 2 laps ago, where he went a little bit too wide at the very first apex of Druids. And those two are still going to be doing battle with still a gap hovering around the 4/10 half a second. The gap still remaining quite steady for the battle for P9 compared to the gap for the lead, courtesy of that front wing Danish Rotolona, who has now widened up to 1.8 seconds. As we're following back with the leader as we speak, Juan Costa, who posted 112.477 during the last lap. He's the only driver, I think, in the 112 zone following the damage from Yuka, who can only muster actually manages to do a 112.540. So I was getting light to current of the last lap timers, but yeah, Yuka is just going to be saying, all right, I'm content with second place. Whoa, Alex Millward. That was very close to being a disastrous run right there through Old Hall for the number 6 car, and I think he did not get overtaken by Juho Raina. That was a lap car that we were seeing just beforehand, I think. But yeah, that was a very, very close run through the first corner. Juho Raina still sitting in 4th. Paul J. Williams currently sitting in 5th. Just behind him, you can barely see the number 5 of Dylan Freckleton, currently trying to salvage that 6th position and making do with the incident that happened midway through the race with Gernot Fritzsche. JDS, Jack David Spickett, currently sitting in 7th position with a gap pretty solid over Pepe Fuentes. About, an island bend's worth of gap, I should say, between him and P8. P9, of course, Seamus Power, and actually Daniel Benker seems to have made a mistake somewhere as he's way far down the order, and now having to maybe keep an eye out for Jason Clapper in P11 as Juan Costa continues to pile on the very fast laps. 112.179 for the race leader with 2 to go.
Yeah, it looked like Daniel Banker had a little bit of a bobble through turn 1, which then turned into a little bit of a bobble, maybe hot tires, just kind of missed the apex coming down through Cascades, had a big slide and saved it nicely there, but unfortunately lost a little bit of a time towards Seamus Power. As we see a car without a front wing and a front light completely locked up.
That's Las Sierras, the number 18 that we saw getting lapped by Alex Millward. Let's see what happened there. That was on the run down to Knickerbrook, actually. Goes too far inside.
Curb,
hits the curb.
Yeah.
Oh, head on the curb, gets all 4s lifted off the ground and straight into the tire wall. Nose first, and that explains the nose job being done. Let's see that from the onboard perspective. Decides to go maybe a little bit too early at the apex right there. There's the curb, boom, and that's going to be sending him all the way to the wall at a very high rate of knots, explaining the amount of damage sustained there by the number 18.
Yeah, that car is not going to be driving right. not in the slightest. As we see Juan Costa take the white flag and start his final lap.
Indeed, Juan Costa. We're going on board with him through the final sequence of through the final lap. Through Cascades he goes. This is a lap car up ahead of him that is going to be making way soon. Through Island Bend we go. A little bit of a lift of the throttle through there before heavy braking down for Shell Oils. The car up ahead is that of Stéphane Le Bourris in the number 17 Ligier livery car, currently sitting in P14 on the run to Hilltop. Still a little bit of a ways to go before Le Bourris has to actually step aside to leave the leader through. Barreling down towards Knickerbrook right now. A little bit of lift of the throttle, maybe a tiny bit of a dab of the brake, a blend on the way there. Managing to keep the exit nice and tidy on the run through Clay Hill. Now moving on to Druids, braking, then down to 4th and 3rd. Hook up that first apex, wait a little bit before getting on the throttle for the second part of the corner. Then through Warwick Bridge, down through Lodge Corner as Le Bourris is going to be leading his way through. He is looking very, very close before the Deer Leap. And ladies and gentlemen, for the 6th time this season, Ronnie Costa is your winner at Oulton Park in this round of the Lotus 79 Sunday Grand Prix Series. Jukka Tolonen finishes second, 1:12.053, the fastest lap going squarely the way of Ronnie Costa, and completing the podium, Alex Millward in the number 6 car. Raina finishing across the line in P4, and that little battle between Paul J. Williams and Dylan Freckleton will be going the advantage of Williams, who claims his P5 ahead of Freckleton. All right, that is going to be concluding this race particular, and we're going to be coming back in a short few moments with the race results and post-race interviews coming right up. Stay with us.
Racing isn't easy, but experiencing it is. iRacing puts you in the driver's seat with the industry's leading sim racing game. Drive on laser scan replicas of the greatest racing circuits from around the world. Go head-to-head against other drivers chosen by skill-based matchmaking to ensure competitive racing at every level. Compete across all your favorite series. In officially licensed cars, engineered to deliver the most accurate driving experience possible. Join a race or host your own with players from across the globe. Race against the computer or in a league with friends. Feel the thrill behind the wheel. Visit iRacing.com.
Well, at the end of a very, very intense 30 laps around here at Oulton Park, here are your final race results for round 10 of the 79 Sunday Grand Prix Series. Ronnie Costa, your race winner by 2.8 seconds ahead of Jukka Tolonen. Completing the podium is Alex Millward in number 6. 4th place for Juho Raina. 5th place for Paul J. Williams. 6th, Dylan Freckleton. 7th place for Jack David Spickett. Pepe Fuentes in 8th position. Shima's Power finishing in 9th. And Jason Clapper in the number 13, completing the top 10.
In 11th, we have Daniel Banker. 12th is Miguel Moreland. 13th is Stefan Leboyes. 14th is Max. 15th is Nathan Finnegan, 13 laps down, unfortunately, with a DNF. Also in the DNFs was Gernot Frisch, Samuel Ryman, and our Lotus 49 guest driver, Sebastian Tixier.
All right, then, yeah, we got to make a... It's always a bit of a hard one to do, but poor Gernot Frisch and Dylan Freckleton having a really nice battle between these two. Unfortunately, a very, very unfortunate outcome through Knickerbrook. Whilst we were actually explaining with the defense from Freckleton on the inside, ultimately hitting the curb in the process of defending, and yeah, not really much either driver could have done to avoid that situation. I wonder if we're going to have any interviews coming up, because we've been waiting for... I don't know if there's going to be anyone joining.
Yeah, you know... It's Oulton Park. When you get the chance, you have to take it. You know, you've got the run going down into Knickerbrook in Gernot's case. He had to go for the move, and Dylan did the right thing defending there. It's just unfortunate, you know, he touched that little bit of a curb, and as we talked about, that'll wash out wide. So in both cases, though, you know, both of the drivers did exactly what they needed to do. There was just, you know, that little bit of human error mixed in there. On top of that, you know, through turn 1, we saw the trail braking there take a number of drivers through for a ride into the tires and the runoff there. So Oulton Park, certainly not a easy circuit to get right. So I think we're going to see Jukka Tolonen join us for an interview here.
Yeah, it does seem like it. We are in with the runner-up for today's race, the unfortunate runner-up for this race, Jukka Tolonen. Jukka, I know it's always going to be boiling down to that little moment through Druids. Talk us through what was going through your head and what you think happened there.
Yeah, well, I was, of course, trying to keep pressure to Ronnie as much as possible, and I think I was able to force a mistake from him, but I was not able to use it for overtake. Of course, I was trying to be as aggressive as possible, and I saw a possibility to overtake him into the last corner, basically. But the speed difference was too big, and I hit his rear and my front wing bent, and basically the race was over at that point. So of course we were lucky, nobody died there, but yeah, I had to be aggressive, but yeah.
Yeah, we saw it was getting a little bit close to disaster at one point when you two made contact. But yeah, going a little bit over the early part of the race, you were actually looking very, very solidly attached to Juanmi through the best part, well, through the last 20 laps or so over the course of the race. How did you manage to? Well, I say, how did you manage to make it to keep pressure on him? Did you actually find any kind of particular setups for certain corners that you managed to get consistently right over Juanmi?
Well, Pauli, my teammate, was actually spotting for me since he didn't have possibility to do the race today, but at least he said that I was faster in the left-hander before the hairpin, and it felt like that. And well, I saw for me to kind of miss apexes here and there, and I was able to catch him quite in many places during the race. But I guess it was just the pressure I was giving him, so he was pushing hard and doing those little mistakes. But yeah, maybe the left-hander if something consistently.
Yuka, I got to ask, I hate to take it back to this point, but in qualifying, it looked like you had a pretty good bobble through Druids with a slide there, and then you got on the power a little hard through Lodge, which is the last right-hander there, and slid the car out there. Do you think you could have had pole today?
Yes, I failed qualifying.
It looked like you lost a 10.5, 2/10 there easy. And I said to myself as you went through those corners, man, I think that was pole position. So I wondered if it weighed on your mind at all, getting onto the grid there at all.
Yeah, I was frustrated, and the gap to Alex was really tiny, so that made it even more frustrating. If I was second on the grid, I maybe would have had a chance in the first corner. So yeah, I have been bad in qualifying previously, and it seems to be still the case. It's my weak point. So yeah.
Well, as somebody not driving in the series regularly, still a great performance. Nice job today. I really thought you were going to get him on the exit of Druids there and get a nice run down into Lodge. So nice race. And Suzuka next week, are you looking forward to that? Are you going to come back and race that?
Possibly. I will have a really busy week, so maybe not practicing that much, but most probably I will show up anyway and see what I can do.
Well, nice job today, and hopefully we see you again soon.
Yep. Bye.
All right, that was an interview with Jukka Tolonen, P2 in this race. And up next is the man who finished in 5th place in this race, Paul J. Williams.
Hey, guys.
Paul, welcome back. Nice to see you in the booth. Nice to see you in a race. Tell us a little bit about how your race went today.
So it's been a while, hasn't it, since I've been in here, and been a while since I've finished many races, to be honest, with internet issues and hardware issues. So yeah, glad to finish the race without, the wheel putting me in the wall or something. So yeah, it was a good race. It was a tough one. You know what it's like here. It's just corner after corner. It just keeps coming. There's no chance to rest. I don't know how much you saw, but yeah, at the start it's quite close between Nathan and I. That I was pushing there, keeping him under pressure, but I think he had a bit better top speed. So it's difficult to get past.
Yeah, but you ran a 0x all race, drove it nice and clean. Between fixing your hardware issues and coming back for Oulton Park and throwing a 0x and running right with Nathan there, I think that's a result to be proud for him this week.
Yeah, I'm really happy with that. Since I sort of came back, just seem to be driving quite well, quite smooth. Yeah, really happy to get a 0x. I did think about it. I thought, is this a 0x race? But I was so in the zone. I didn't look at how many laps are left. I didn't want to look at any other information. Just wanted to keep it on the road.
Yeah, we saw a shot there of you running through turn one, and you must have been inches from taking an off-track penalty right there. So very, very nicely done. I'm very happy to see you back running with us again. Next week, we've got Suzuka. Are you looking forward to that? Is that one of your favorites? I know a lot of people say it's, a top-tier, S-tier track. It's one of my favorites. But there are some weird people out there that don't like it.
No, I love it. I love these tracks that are flowing, where there's corner after corner and you don't really have much time to think. The worst thing for me is, long straights to overthink things. But Suzuka is one of the best tracks in the world. So, yeah, really looking forward to that one. And I'm away this week, so I won't get much chance to practice. But Saturday and Sunday, yeah, should be there.
Well, now I know why you didn't show up for Le Mans Historic, but anybody you'd like to thank this week?
Just yourself, really, for keeping this community going. Still going strong. Yeah, thanks for all the guys who give me some little tips and tricks on the way. And everyone for turning up. Congratulations to top 3 Wanmis on a different planet.
Thanks, Paul. And I think Thomas is caught up with Wanmi.
Indeed. Last but not least is your race winner for today, Juanmi Costa. First of all, welcome in the booth and congratulations on your 6th win this season. Now, I know we're going to be talking about that moment in lap 21 later, but talk us through the opening 2/3 of the race. You were pretty much locking horns with Yuka, nip and tuck all the way through. And what was actually going through your head as you were trying to manage that battle in a bit of a long run through that 30-lap race?
Hello, thank you. As the first half of the race, it was only looking at the mirror to see Yuka. It was 0.3 all the race behind, and looking also to the curves on the exit of some corners on the entry, try to minimize the risk of blowing away because this track is criminal.
Yeah, it can be very unforgiving. Now, moving on to the turning point, I should say, of the race, lap 21, where you were looking a little bit loose, not once, but twice coming out of Druids. I'm imagining your heart was starting to race a little bit there as you were trying your best to keep the car on the road, and then you had Yuka, unfortunately, meeting your rear end a little bit. How did you manage to cope with that, even though I'm imagining it was a bit of an adrenaline rush through there?
I don't know how we get alive from that, because after the first snap I got, I had to look at the exit of the corner because it's a little blind, and you had to focus to not go too far. And the next thing I see is Yuka jumping behind me, and I see the contact. I don't know how I escape alive from that, but.
That is, I think that pretty much says everything about this incident. It was, it's a sort of Saturnalia miracle that neither of two were getting your race ended here and then. Now, looking at the next race on the schedule, Suzuka coming up next. Are you looking forward to this particular track?
No, the season is over for me already. I will let the other people drive.
Alrighty then, that's going to be an early sign-off for you. But once again, congratulations on your win here at Oulton Park. And if you want to thank anyone here and have anyone you want to say hi to, the floor is yours.
Thank you to Yuka for the amazing races. He was way faster than me. He deserved the win. Shame the bad quali, but yeah, thank you to him, to everybody in the community, and to you for the broadcast. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much, Ronnie, for your time. And once again, congratulations on your win. And that is going to be concluding this round of itchy reviews for this particular race here in the Sunday Grand Prix Series. Next up, of course, will be a track that is not any less fearsome, that being, of course, the Suzuka circuit in Japan. As you can see, the wonderful figure-8 layout, first built in 1963, will be the host of your penultimate round of the season, which will be coming next week on August 27th, back at the usual schedule of 12:30 p.m. Eastern. In the meantime, thank you very much for the team today, Michael, Ryan, and Dougie. Make sure to check out our social media, our merch site, and our website on our own merchandise store, linked on the screen and in the description below. And make sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel as well, so you don't miss any moment of action here on the Global SimRacing Channel. Besides the Sunday Grand Prix series, there are a lot of other series that you can check out, some of things being listed here. And actually, this is the next race coming right up in a few moments, the Major Series Atlantic Grand Prix of Long Beach at 11:30 a.m. Eastern, that will be picking up in a few moments' time after this race broadcast concludes. In the meantime, for the Sunday Grand Prix series, I've been Thomas Mengozzi, and this has been Michael the Turk with me in the booth. And until next time, race clean, race hard, and we'll see you on the track.
Wow.